Welcome to the Central Film School podcast, where we explore the craft, careers, and creative journeys shaping today's screen industries. In this episode, we're taking a closer look at the world of high-end film and television production, what it takes not just to create great work, but to actually bring complex projects to the screen. I'm joined by Liane Escorza, a production executive who has worked across both film and major television series with credits including The Favourite, Renegade Nell and Rivals. In our conversation, we'll explore her career journey, what the role of a production executive really involves, and what students and emerging filmmakers should understand about working at scale in today's industry. Liane, welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
A real pleasure to have you. So we've had you in the school before for one of our Master Your Craft series,
yes,
which was absolutely wonderful, and it was so fantastic. I begged you to come back again
yes.
and join us for our podcast. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you. No, I'm glad, I'm here, and, I hope I'm useful, and I provide information for, whoever wants to take it on.
We're really
for their future, yes.
We're really excited to hear what you have to say. So currently you're a senior production executive with Disney Plus Originals. So just to start off, because that sounds like a very exciting title,
yes.
And I'm sure the work is really exciting, but it would be great if you could just tell us a little bit about your role. In essence, what does an executive producer do on a day-to-day basis?
On a day-to-day basis, we do so many different things. We're sort of troubleshooting a lot, and, there's a lot going on behind the wheels of not just, taking care of the productions that we have funded and we're supervising. But in a nutshell, what a production executive does is a little bit like, a head of production in a way for a production company as well, who have a slate, and they're supervising specific projects that have been greenlit. So what Disney does is, we obviously commission titles. We get third-party production companies to produce certain shows for us. And while the commissioners are sort of taking care of more of the creative side of things, we work along with them to make sure that the productions are going to be delivered.
Yeah.
They're going to be produced within the budget that we have approved originally when we greenlit it, and also within the schedule, obviously, so that we can make sure that they appear on the platforms at the time that we had scheduled it for.
Yeah.
But then, obviously, when you get into the weeds of it all, if we're, for example, there's currently there's 3 production executives in our team, because there are quite a few projects on the go and many more in development. So we sort of get them allocated. So that we don't we don't all do this, many of them at the same time, because it's impossible. So so we basically, in a way, hold hands of the executive producers and the series producer, and we liaise with the financial controller and with head of production of the production company to make sure that things are going on track, all the way from the beginning, from the moment that, the project has been greenlit, we have locked the budget, to the delivery side of the project. So post-production and delivery of all the documentation and all the archive materials, etc., to be launched on the platform on time. And so there's different stages. You're sort of like going all the way from pre-prep. Well, first of all, development, obviously.
Yeah.
So we may be, it depends on the nature of the show. It could be just a work for hire show. It could be a pre-buy. It could be, sometimes.
So that 2 really important terms there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned pre-buy and work for hire. So could you just briefly explain what they are?
Yeah, well, so basically, it may be that, we're developing something from scratch, where something comes to us as a storyline or an idea with maybe one of the episodes written, or maybe not even, right? So we're obviously allocating an amount of money through development because we believe in the project, for them to sort of go and do their homework and then get back to us. And then there's a set of notes, and then we kind of like, get more money into sort of more writers to come in, etc. Until we sort of green lighted and say, yeah, let's go ahead with that. So and that would be a work for hire kind of like model, because we're obviously like starting from scratch. Yeah. And we are sort of hiring this production company to sort of do the work for us from the beginning. Whereas a pre-buy model is more like, oh, something is already basically made or pre-made. Yeah. And then we're sort of like investing a specific, amount of money into it. Or it's already ready to sort of go straight into pre-production. Wow. Because all the development work has been done previously. So again, there's certain different nuances in the terms as well. So it's a question of, and then also you may get co-productions, the notion of co-production in, for example, if something is coming, in our case, we get a few things coming from the US, from FX or from other sort of like sectors, departments, I guess. I don't know how to call them.
Divisions.
Yeah, divisions. Yes, that's right. Divisions in our own, Disney world. Yeah. So then that, the model, slightly changes as well in terms of the contract. So we work, I mean, normally the majority of it is really work for hire. And because there's also another department that is merely acquisitions, and they work literally on buying productions that have already been, made and delivered somewhere else, and then they kind of like, want to, they just buy them to sort of like put them on our platform and distribute them and exploit them. Yes. Yeah. So, but we work more consistently with work for hire sort of models. So, and then
and just on that, and so and is there a level of? I mean, it sounds quite like a classic project management kind of role.
Yes.
In the sense that you know, on budget or like in budget on time, and that real focus.
Yes.
And what is the? And I know you noted there's a difference between the commissioners and your role. Mm-hmm. Is there creative input? You mentioned that you're giving notes back, and I suppose, how do you feel about that process? Do you enjoy it?
Yes.
That area,
yes. So I mean. So we're obviously looking at the numbers, and we're sort of like doing the cost reporting. We're looking at, on a weekly basis, we're having meetings, with the head of production, sometimes with the executive producers, et cetera, to sort of see how things are going. And that, like as soon as they get into production, obviously, we're looking at the call sheets, we're following, how things are going. There may be, sometimes because the writing process is happening at the same time. It may be that, episode 6 is being written at the same time. So then the commissioners obviously are reading those and they're giving notes back. They will give notes back creatively, but we need to know how those changes or those, I guess the scripts are being developed, so that, because that will inform how the budget is going to look like, or what the cost report is going to look like in a few weeks' time, if you know what I mean.
There's a bit of a tension, like a commercial tension there in a way.
Yes, exactly. So the commissioners know that, there's certain things that, we probably cannot pull off, because they're aware about how much, the bottom line is in terms of the budget that we have greenlit. Yeah. So, and we're also working with them and with the production company, and those on the ground to sort of say, okay, this is a great idea, but how can we maximize, or how can we make it happen within the amount of money that we've got? Like, what are the savings like in this other department that we could maybe use to, I don't know, hit this beat that is absolutely like fundamental and that we all like. So we definitely, production management is obviously focusing on production management, but at the same time, we're constantly liaising with our, peers in our office, because we need to understand what the changes are, where we stand creatively. Then, things affect health and safety, and all those costs. Things affect maybe, business affairs, because they're obviously looking at specific contracts, and then suddenly adding some element into this, into the story will mean that we have to get a specific new role that is going to cost a lot of money, and that affects the budget and affects the schedule because they may not be available. So, we are constantly having those sort of conversations. And again, marketing need to know, because obviously that sort of is an addition to the PR campaign that we're going to do later on. And, so it's not, in a way, like, production management, like it is on the ground, when you're freelancing, you're sort of that axis in the middle of it all. Sort of,
you're like the
sustaining.
You're like the conductor.
Yeah.
In a way that, I'm sorry, I feel like I started off with a really, really complicated question.
We could, exactly. We could go on forever, you know what I mean? Like, but yes, it is a bit like that. In even though, within the high-end TV world, and especially with the streamers, the commissioners obviously have a lot of power, because they're the ones sort of deciding, okay, this is the content that we want to create for our platform, and this is who we are, and this is our brand, and this is, they wouldn't be able to sort of like carry on without us, but at the same time, we also wouldn't be able to, do our job without them. We can't. So we complement each other, and it's this, and it's the same with the rest of the departments. Like we're constantly like talking to legal and content security, because obviously content security is important for us. We don't want any leaks. We're talking to, sometimes with, even on their side, with the art department, or with locations and so on, because we need to be aware about, the changes in terms of like, the fuel has gone up so high, and so you need to be informed about what is going on outside and inside, and so. So it's a really rewarding, role. It's really great, because even though you're not on the ground, sort of looking at all the different departments doing their little bits, you're still aware, in-house of what is happening.
Yeah, and an amazing sort of bird's eye view of what's happening.
Yeah, and then we get to go to set, of course, and then we're talking to people, and we're having the production meetings, and we're having the read-through. So, I mean, we as Disney are, we like to be very involved in the whole process. We, by saying that, I don't mean that we want to, we're like, eagle's eye, like on top of you, sort of like, as in, we're not trusting the production companies. Of course we are, but we do want to work together to make sure that we're creating the best project that it can be. The quality and value have to be really high, and we are there also, not only for the good times, but also for the bad times. So if if they're struggling with some, we want to have that conversation, and we want to help them out, and we want to provide solutions, It's not like, here's the money, and then you do what you can with it. We like to be involved in the process all along, to support the productions, and also to make sure that everybody's happy. That there are certain policies in place, that are that align with what we believe in, that with our values, exactly. So yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
It sounds fascinating and quite busy.
Yeah, very busy, very busy. Yes,
Well, then let's go back a little bit. So that's absolutely fascinating. And obviously you're really, you're at the top of your game in a really senior and influential position within, obviously, I suppose, the largest commissioning organization in the world, probably Disney. So if we go back in time a little bit, so how did you get it? What first drew you into the screen industries? And you spoke a little bit about this before when you were in the school, but we'd love to just a little bit on that again.
So, oh God, where do I start with that? So, well, I grew up in a household where I had a lot of books, around me. And so I was an avid reader. I was a bookworm. I loved stories. I mean, that kind of influenced, a lot, in my upbringing. My father was the kind that, even though we had a TV, did not allow me to watch TV very much. He didn't feel like it was a very good thing, like for a child.
Brain rot.
Yes, pretty much. Like, I grew up in Spain. I came from Germany when I was a little child, but yes, pretty much, I was in Spain for my schooling years, and we call it the caja tonta, as in like the stupid box. That was what you would call the TV at the time. So anyway,
don't tell Disney that.
Yeah, don't exactly. No. Who would have thought, right? Like, after, yeah. But anyway, but at the time, I mean, years and years ago, in the late 70s or 80s, the content was, I mean, especially in Spain, I remember turning the TV on and there was nothing, the colors, what was the call, when there's no transmission, and then you would have
static.
Yeah, the static. So there was nothing going on. So it was only the news and then maybe a few programs here and there anyway. So, but yeah, I grew up with books and so stories that, in my head, I kind of imagined all this, all these worlds. My grandmother was a teacher and my great aunt as well. And then my dad sort of like did his own sort of schooling in a way. He loves philosophy and he would read a lot of books. And so that kind of in a way, I guess sort of subconsciously like took me to a path that, a storytelling path. Exactly. So when I basically went to university, I did a little bit of business administration to start with, and then I, with the idea of really transferring into another university and do some comparative literature and linguistics. Because originally I thought, maybe if I work in publishing, and then maybe I, because I speak a few languages, maybe I can translate some books, and that would be quite a fun job to have, which originally did happen. So I ended up in a translation company called SDL International. I don't know if they're still going. I think they kind of, at the time, they were one of the biggest ones in translation. And I was there for a few years. And then I kind of like, I started getting itchy feet. And I thought, why not just like, get into publishing, just to work with books and materials, but just in English. And then, sort of talk to authors and edit, the stories and then produce the books. And that's what I did. I moved on to that. I was determined and I got...
Like a literary, executive producer. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. So I got a job, and then I was working on a few different publishers from then on, working as a production editor and production manager. And then at some point I got a little bored of that, and again, itchy feet. And then I thought, well, why not, now get these stories onto the screen, that would be quite fun. So
you're sort of like following joy.
Yeah, I was following.
Just like going on to joy.
Yes.
Where can I find more storytelling joy?
Exactly. How can I think it was more about, the fact that, one specific format was not good enough for me, like I needed to sort of move on, from like the way that you're sort of telling stories in that one specific format into another. The medium, basically, yes. So, so I then started sort of doing a little bit of research on how to jump from publishing into the screen world, because I wasn't too sure, because I obviously hadn't gone to a film school or university. Poor me.
Film schools are great.
Yeah, they are great. But at the time I didn't really have the resources or the knowledge to sort of understand that, that was a possibility for me. I mean, I could go, like I said before, before that we would switch this on, into a rabbit hole and tell you all about my life. But yeah, I mean, there were certain circumstances. Unfortunately, I wasn't able, I didn't have the opportunities, let's put it that way. So I had to basically carve my career this way, and go all around in a huge circle to get back to square one, because, I did have a love for movies once I, was able to switch the TV on. So in the end, I jumped into the pool and I decided to do little like 1-to-1 kind of like courses, weekend courses. Went to a, producing little course at RADA. I was sort of exploring, trying to figure out how to match or marry the skills that I had gained and the experience that I had gained in production within publishing, and then also the editorial side of things, into the film world. And slowly but really, gradually, I kind of, started getting a few jobs here and there. And then, as you know, like, people get to know you, word of mouth. And then, one thing led to another. I ended up working in independent films. And
was there, so you're furrowing your own pathway and you're sort of accumulating skills as you go. Was there, was there a key moment where you felt, actually, okay, this isn't, I'm moving from, screen storytelling being sort of like an interest to being, okay, this is actually a serious career thing? What was that moment?
That was, I think that was when I think that was when I worked on Beast.
Okay.
The film Beast.
Yeah.
That was, it was the debut film by Michael Pearce, who is magnificent. And Jessie Buckley was on it, Johnny Flynn as well.
I think that was her screen, like her film debut, was it?
I think
maybe the one that sort of really pushed.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So I Michael, was obviously like very, he really, as far as I remember, he really wanted her because he was. I mean, obviously she's excellent. We could see already from the beginning how strong and wonderful she was, and Johnny is amazing, by the way, as well. Like. So like I remember, like I think my role actually was as a production coordinator, or so I wasn't really like still I wasn't making that many decisions, let's put it that way. But because it was a small independent film and we were a smaller team, you could see the cogs of the wheels like turning, and we were all sitting in the same room. The producers, were right in front of me. Amazing. And then Michael would be like sitting next to. It would be like it was a very petit comité type of environment, but you could see like the creativity flowing and that you were part of something important. So I think that's when I sort of realized, I really enjoyed that film so much, and the team were amazing, and I had such a great time, and I learned so much that I enjoyed the script and the story, and the performances were so great. And I thought, this is it. I don't think I'm moving from this medium anymore. Like this screen, this is definitely what I want to do moving forward forever. And so that was definitely the turning point moment for me. And
I think that's a really interesting point, and we sort of we're always sort of saying this to our students and trying to give them opportunity, that actually that observation is so important, is so vital. It'd be actually, you mentioned Beast, and I sort of noted on here one of your earlier credits is Meet Me on the Southbank.
Yes, that was my first role in a film.
Yes.
And I was straight away a line producer. Which was like, wow.
Tell us about that first role. Actually, I'd love to hear a little bit more about it, because I was crawling all over your internet profiles. But so you're inline producer. It's your first film role. In what way and how did that film? What did you learn from that, and how did that actually sort of direct your trajectory afterwards?
Yes, so I can't even remember how I got into that role. I think I met the director / producer, Adam, and I don't know if I replied to an advert. I don't know how it was, but this was basically a project of his that, it was kind of like a labor of love sort of thing. He really wanted to sort of get that out of his chest, and so it was a very personal project, and it was a very small, independent film, very, very small. I cannot even remember how much it cost, but it was small. So we were a very, very small team, but, straight away he sort of, I guess in a way he was a bit of a mentor for me. He gave me that opportunity, and he said, Liane, I believe in you. I can see that you've got the sensibility and the common sense to sort of run this, so let's just do it, And I suppose, because I was, like you were saying, I've always been quite observant, and I like to learn, and I'm very curious. And then I apply a lot of like common sense from, different other sectors into, what you're doing at this, it's kind of like, well, surely there has to be an insurance, right? Like, and I didn't know anything about insurance, but I said to myself, there must be insurance, right? Because, you can't start doing these things without, being protected in a way. So I kind of like, and because I was asking questions, and I was just like, reaching out to people in the industry to sort of like lend a hand, and believe it or not, most people are there to help you. They'll be like, we'll contact so and so, and so it's a question about asking, all the time. And so I kind of so Adam Ralston is his name. He's now doing some theater, by the way. He's like exploring the love of theater now. But he gave me that opportunity, and that and if he wasn't for that role and for him, that wouldn't, I don't know if I would have carried on doing, film, if you know what I mean.
That was just sliding doors.
That was in a way, my sliding doors, yes. And if it wasn't for that specifically, even though it was a very small film, in a way, and, just having that on the portfolio to say, I actually was line producing this. It started
it's
opening doors. Just, because it's like, okay, well, she's able to do something, regardless of, it hasn't won an Oscar, but, it's a huge, it's a huge responsibility, to have. And then because, some of those films that came afterwards, had like larger budgets and more people and more personnel, of course, I was happy to sort of step down in the roles and learn, because obviously I wasn't, there's so many other things that, I only like merely touched the surface, on Meet Me on the Southbank, that I needed to learn. Yeah. So I was aware that, my position in certain other projects was not as a line producer, I had to sort of be flexible and adaptable. Yeah. But slowly but steadily, that's how I, worked my way up, not only within, the production team, but also in terms of the variety of like projects that I was, choosing or working on. Because, it's not only on my CV, sorry, but, in between, I did like music videos, or maybe a commercial here or there, or I was helping out with, some theater, or, there's always something to do in between that it's impossible to sort of write everything down, really.
Well, Liane, when you have such a huge and wide range of credits on your CV, then you start taking out the music videos.
Well, it's true, yes.
But it's all about just like, it's sort of, I don't know, we sort of talk to students about like, it's a combination of, you must have confidence, you must back yourself, but also have humility as well.
Yes.
And know that actually I still have something to learn, and be open to that. That's
really
important too.
Yes, exactly, yes. And that's where, also respect for other people's works, comes into play a lot, because and that's one of the things that I always think about when I get into a project, because I'm not going to deny it, but in every project, there's one moment, if not more than one, where you just want to quit. Yeah. You're so tired, you're exhausted, there's so many different reasons why you may want to quit, right? Like, but then you think everybody's on this, on the same sort of situation as you, they may be thinking, oh my God, I am exhausted, the long hours, or I don't get along with, I don't know, XYZ, or, it's proving quite difficult, or, I'm not getting a response from this supplier, and I've been chasing and it's driving me insane because I need an answer. It's like, it gets very, very difficult, but in the long run, what keeps me going is literally that, the other people's talents, in what other industry do you get to work with a production designer or an art department team that can build something in just a matter of days that looks absolutely fabulous? And so beautiful, or like, well, look at the costumes, or look at, I am always fascinated by the, like, the craft and artistry. Because for me, everybody that works in the film industry, for me, they're artists really more than anything else. Of course, we have to look at it under a business point of view, etc. But I mean, it's incredible, like the skill and craft and in artistry that you find and talent that you find in so many people in the industry. And I'm in such an awe every time that I just go, like, of course I'm going to carry on going. I mean, like, how lucky am I that I'm sitting here, like talking to you right now, but also that I was able to, like, I'm just thinking about this moment where I was sitting at this small office for small acts, and I was thinking, I'm working with Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
Like, incredible. Today is a horrible day. But I'm working with Steve McQueen, you know what I mean? Like, and he's such a talented director. Yeah. And it's or I don't know, with Rivals, costume designer Ray, like he's fabulous.
Huge fan of Rivals.
Fabulous, yeah. So and it's just like, it's so, for me, it's not only about telling the story, but it's about thinking the people that have made this story alive. It's like it's amazing, I can't be more overwhelmed and marveled enough by the talent of the people that I work with. I mean, and that's what keeps me going, basically.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful words, and I think a perfect moment for a little break.
Okay.
And we shall be back shortly, where we'll talk a little bit more about industry insights and those pearls of wisdom.
Yes. All right.
Okay, welcome back to part 2 of our podcast with Liane Escorza. And so obviously something that has been recommissioned is Rivals.
Yes.
So I don't know if you were
season 2
in season 2 or the
season 2
ones. Yeah. How are you feeling?
Yes, good. So season 2. So basically
huge success.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. So I did not work on season 1. I was working on another project. I was working on 1,000 Blows.
Oh wow! Okay, amazing.
So my colleague Jeff, who is not with us either anymore, he was poached as well. Good sign. Yeah. He was working on season 1, and then obviously he left, and then at some point, so I kind of like took over for season 2 when he was commissioned again, and I mean, it was it was quite clear from the beginning that that was going to happen again, really, because it's such a fun show, but it's also. It forms part of the British cultural identity, I would say, isn't it? And then it kind of tackles all the 80s in a very clever, subtle sort of way, and it has this sort of like quintessentially British humor, with a bit of like spice, A
lot of spice.
I'm being politically correct here, but yes, a lot of spice, but it's not a. I think it's a very fun, playful, respectful sort of type of, spice, if you know what I mean. It's
subversive in many ways. It's looking at the 80s, of course, and there's fun there, but it's subverting that, which is really interesting to see. And a bit of joy as well.
And a bit of joy, yes. But so season 2 was obviously we were like, oh, well, this is going to be a challenge, isn't it? But the great thing about, Dominic and in the team and Alex and Lee at Disney and so on, is that they have managed to create some, because the challenge is like how do we make this even better? How do we progress into and how, and then obviously it's based on a book and Julie Cooper's book, and they have created something that is even more exciting. It's not there's a lot of dramatic moments on season 2. It really gets more it gets deep into certain sort of topics and certain like storylines that we're going to see of some of the characters that are going to make people really jump of joy, but also like get their hearts racing and their tears going, and because we're so invested in those characters. But we're going to see quite a lot of the, I guess, humanity, behind, some of these people. And I'm not saying that season one that, you didn't get to see that, but it was, in a way, I feel like it was sort of scratching the surface, Yeah. So I think people are going to love this season. Yes, it's really, I have to say, and personally, and this is nothing, related to Disney Plus or not, I was not sure about Rivals when when it was first commissioned. I was like, oh gosh, like
that was everyone, Liane.
Yeah, I was like,
practically.
I was like, oh wow, okay, and now I love it. Yeah. Now I'm totally converted. Yeah, so yes,
absolutely the same. So we can't wait. Okay, so a final couple of questions. We've got to that really important part, pearls of wisdom.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
for our students. And for, I suppose, aspiring visual storytellers. So, slightly quick fire in these questions. But so for somebody at film school right now, what should they be focusing on beyond their craft? So obviously our courses are focused on, you're a filmmaker, you're a screenwriter, you're an actor of screen, so that's the craft side. Beyond sort of like learning the discipline, what should they be focusing on, in your opinion? To succeed in the screen industries, I should
yes,
say.
I think, well, I would say, it's very important to be informed about the state of the industry and where we're at and where the trends lie. Reading a lot about, and listening to the news, listening to podcasts, listening to creatives, where things are going. Basically the business of it all. Yeah. I think it's very important, to be informed of that. Don't just look at, what you are sort of like doing now, but also look out at, the industry and the world as a whole, because that is going to influence your craft and your position, basically. And you may have to sort of adapt and mold, towards, the new step that you need to take, moving forward. So I do that all the time. Like I'm reading broadcast news. I'm reading, I'm reading just the news in general. I'm looking at the politics. I'm looking at what is happening in the world. Like, because things are going to affect the industry. It's going to affect your mortgage. It's going to affect all this economically, loads of things. So, so it means that you have to be flexible all the time. And I don't want to sort of like generalize things, but if you're focused on a specific thing like writing or producing or being a cameraman, it's always useful to be wary of what I call the hinterlands, right? Read about what's happening, I don't know, in the natural world, or read about what's happening in or learn about a little bit more about costume, or learn about or maybe you want to sort of like read books on, sort of, I don't know, astronomy, like look at, what Artemis are doing right now, right? Yeah. So just because that will inform your craft as well. Your creativity, your craft, and then also your position within the industry in the long run. And also because then it's easier to have those conversations with other people because you're informed. And that also helps with the networking. If somebody's telling you something and you have no clue what is going on, it really is not going to be very useful for you in the long run.
You have to be a rounded person in a way, and I think I love that you say that. I think it's really wonderful advice, because like the screen industries are intertrans and multidisciplinary. So you talk about costume designers, you talk about all the different crafts coming in together, and actually a filmmaker is one part of that, an actor is one part of that, but if
Yeah.
you don't understand the other parts, it limits their creativity, it limits their craft.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Cool. And so, in terms of somebody who was approaching you to work with you, a new emergent visual storyteller, what are you looking for?
So one thing is hard work. Obviously passion, that goes hand in hand. But yes, hard work for sure. There's one thing about the industry, of course, you'll never be late, always be early. Always be early. You have to be an early riser, always be early. That is number one. And then I would say be respectful and listen. Listen a lot. Those would be the four things. And I think it kind of applies to, in general, to anyone and anywhere you may want to work at. I mean, those are the things that everybody expects to see in our industry and, our sector, for sure.
Great.
Yes.
Listening, kids, be on time.
Yes.
we remind our students of that a lot too. Okay, and final question.
Yes.
I'm sad to say.
Oh.
So what's one screen story, so film, TV show, whatever, that you think our students should be watching right now, and why? One or two, let's say. One or two,
yes. Oh my God, it's very difficult for me to say this because obviously I am going to be subjective about this, right? And other people will probably disagree and go, what? No. I absolutely adore Severance. I am one of those that kind of likes to see stories that are a little bit kind of, that are not following so much a specific format, if you know what I mean. I love art house filmmaking. So I thought that Severance, especially like series 1, was absolutely incredible because, it's a thriller and it deals with, some psychological conundrums that I think everybody goes through in a very clever way. The performances are incredible, and I just love the production design for some reason. I think it's absolutely marvelous. I love Ben Stiller as a director, I have to say. I love his directorial work. But I think even with the writing, it's really a great example of craft, mixed with, very interesting storytelling. And, and this was obviously a risk. You can tell that it was a risk that I think it was, well, now it's Apple, isn't it? That they took. Because I'm sure that, if you read the script in the first place, you would be like, what is this? This is a bit crazy. So I think people should watch that, to also understand the sort of high-end TV, what it can achieve.
It doesn't have to be sort of formulaic in a sense.
No,
right?
exactly.
It can be
risks. But then in terms of like filmmaking, that is so difficult, right? But I was thinking about this the other day, and I always think, okay, what was the film that made me want into filmmaking, or like made me sort of like see the screen in a see a TV or the screen in a different way? And that was Some Like It Hot.
Oh, wow.
Which, I would watch over and over again anytime.
Perfect film.
So I think Billy Wilder, again, if you actually start reading about this, when he created this film at the time, it was a huge risk for him, I mean, he's mocking the mafia.
Yeah.
And then he has 2 men dressed as women.
Yeah.
And, somehow you kind of forget what happens with Marilyn Monroe and Tony Curtis, but you do remember that one last line, nobody's perfect. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And Jack Lemmon is well, he's my idol, really. I was absolutely distraught when he passed away. And that's, I realized, straight away what an incredible performer he was. And I was like, oh my God, I want to meet this person, or what do I do, to work with people like this. And so, yeah, I think, again, it's a classic. I love the fact that it's fast paced, but it was fast at the time, but for us it's kind of slow, isn't it? But the different use of music and of like momentum and beats and turning points, they're very different to the filmmaking we do nowadays. Absolutely. But it still has all the elements that make a film, marvelous and complete and beautiful and funny, but also dramatic at the same time. And it kind of like, it also, as a woman, I think it had a lot of message, sort of hidden messages. Yeah. That people at the time probably didn't see so much, or maybe didn't want to see so much, but they were there.
Well, they could sort of choose to see them if they wanted to see them.
Exactly.
Or they could just ignore them.
They could just ignore them.
It was a broad slapstick comedy, which is hilarious.
Yes.
But no, it was. I totally agree with you. It was incredibly ahead of its time in many, many, many ways.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
That's a beautiful recommendation. I love it. So, Liane, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. It was lovely to be here.
It was wonderful hearing from you. Such amazing experience. I know everyone who listens in will get so much out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks a million. And that's it for today's podcast. We shall be back with more fascinating guests very soon.